Hi, welcome to Therapy JA. Each week we interview different therapists and pastors, and this week I want to have the perspective of a pastor in discussing the topic of mental health and the church. And so today we have Pastor Carlyle, a pastor of over 23 years, 20, 30? 30 years at Webster United. Pastor Carlyle, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Stephen. Really, really good to be here, and to share in conversations of this nature. Thank you. I'm so humbled that you have asked me to share, really.
Thank you. So, all right, could you tell us like your story? What led you to God and what led you to becoming a pastor? Because there are many different callings of people in the faith. So what called you to become a pastor?
Yeah, well, I mean, I presume like many pastors, grew up in the church, and I've been nurtured in the faith from a very young age. As a matter of fact, my trajectory was supposed to guide me to go into law. I was en route to doing law, actually. And then, boy, I tell you, the Lord just used different experiences and different persons to confirm a call upon my life, and there's a particular experience that I had, being caught up in a vision. Probably if I were to consider it, I may have needed clinical help. These days when you talk about no. These days when you talk about visions and so forth, people think you're mad. So you probably should have gotten some kind of psychological help. But no, the truth is that spiritual experiences cannot be adequately described in words. And so by virtue of that particular experience, which by the way was confirmed in the natural, I ventured into full-time pastoral ministry after having been trained at the United Theological College of the West Indies. So I'm with the United Church in Jamaica. Yeah.
Cool.
So I've been a pastor now for some 23 years, right? Basically, I started when I was a baby, right?
There's always growth and improvement. All right, so in the advent of therapy and stuff, what for United, what is it like if someone comes to you in need of counsel? How do you normally handle it as a pastor? In terms of, let's give an example, if someone that is struggling with depression, how would you handle it as a pastor?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things we are trained to understand is that there are professionals who have particular skills and giftings to deal with certain things. As a pastor, my responsibility is to accompany, and part of the accompanying process is to listen and to discern and to try and help persons to clarify what it is that they are thinking or what it is that they have said. Now, in situations of depression where it may be of a clinical nature, I would allow persons to connect with professionals who are so skilled and trained to handle matters of that nature. Now, remember now, I presume depression is on a continuum, right? And so there are certain events in a person's life that may cause them to experience low feeling and emotions. Some of these things can be clarified through conversations and through pastoral counseling journey. But then there are others that may require some more skills and tools that clinical psychologists and counselors may need to employ. And so I am very clear at the outset that this may need to happen so that persons who come to me do not feel as if I'm putting them off, but they appreciate the fact that, look, based on what may present itself, I may need to refer you to someone who is more skilled and experienced in this particular aspect or arena.
Do you guys have like therapists that are like you have therapists on call, like, can be like, hey, I have this therapist that's affiliated with the church, you can go to this therapist? Do you guys have that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, at Webster, where I serve, we have a counseling center. And there is a clinical psychologist and a group of other counselors there who offer this kind of support to persons who have these needs.
That's really good. And that has been a part of the church for some time?
A long time, over 30, 35 years.
Oh, that's very good. Okay, so in the advent of, has there ever been a case where someone has come to you with an issue where you were like, you had to report to police, but they were asking you to not? Or was it like a confidential thing, but you knew as a pastor you had to report it to police?
Well, I've never had any of that. Can you imagine? I've never had any of those situations over my 23 years of pastoring where something needs to be reported to the police, you know, but there have been situations where I've had to refer persons to other individuals who could step in and give a more fulsome kind of support. I have also leaned on some police officers just for insight in the event that something comes up, because I don't want to just send people to a police station, for example. I would want to put them in the hand of somebody who I trust. You understand what I'm saying? You know, but I've never had a case of that nature. No.
Okay, cool. All right, how do you feel about the stigma of mental health in Jamaica? Do you feel like it has changed, it has improved? Like, how you feel about that?
Mental health, mental illness. It strikes very closely home, you know, Stephen, because my younger brother, my only brother, struggled with it from 2003. I think by virtue of the prevalence of communication tools, there's much that can be done in terms of helping persons to understand that it is really an illness like other illnesses and is, you know, treatable if caught early. But also, how do we put resources as a nation to ensure that persons receive the care, whether it be a kind of domicile care or medical care, you know, so that families are able to deal with the stress and the tension that come with dealing with someone who has mental illness.
It's interesting you said that. So there's a fascination with church, especially Caribbean churches, with demons. And, you know, that a lot of people believe that, you know, mental illness may be a demon that has to be exorcised and so. What do you think is it that has this strong fascination with demons in the church in relation to mental health?
Well, and it's funny, you know, I don't think it's only the Caribbean church. I think even in the West, culturally, you know, much of what seemed as mental anomalies were attributed to this spiritual realm. So that even if you look in scripture, like Psalm 121, when they talk about the sun shall not smite thee by day nor the moon by night, many persons in the East, so you see it's not only a Western thing, but in the East, the thought was that, boy, when you get moonstroke, you get mad, you know? Yeah. So when the moon is a full moon, so it's the idea behind the full moon. It strikes up mental illness, because I presume it is a Greek it's part of Greek mythology that speaks to the fact that the moon and mental health, there is a connection there. And so you see the interplay between the spiritual realm and the natural realm. So I think embedded in these philosophies, these thoughts have been carried throughout generations. And we, by virtue of having our African connections, you can't overlook the African retentions, you know. The spirit world plays a strong role in whether there are maladies or whether there is wellness. So I think that is where we as a Caribbean people have been impacted by that kind of mindset.
Do you believe that some mental illness is demon possession?
I believe that, and I have to be careful how I say it. I believe that maladies can create room for demonic manipulation and demonic infestation. You know?
Maladies like what?
Yeah, I believe that because if there's a place of brokenness, the enemy moves into the brokenness and makes a home there and really can damage a person. And this is not only in terms of mental illness, but it happens in terms of emotional brokenness. So think about it. My heart gets broken, and then I become overrun by the spirit of anger. And then anger disintegrates into a kind of bitterness and resentment. And that now becomes my persona and fuels everything that I do. That in and of itself is the act of the evil one, because I'm taken over by a kind of approach to life and attitude and spirit that is not helpful. You understand? So I'm just trying to simplify it so we can appreciate the fact that, and this is where I stand on it. It might not be the general stand, that in our places of brokenness, the enemy can see it as an opportunity for manipulation and infestation.
So do you believe that a Christian can be demon possessed?
No, I don't believe that.
Okay.
I don't believe that. I personally believe that they can be demonized, right? But they can't be possessed. Well, I'll try to explain. I'm no expert, right? But I'll try to explain. A Christian is a person who belongs to Jesus Christ, right? And is possessed by Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But there are areas in a Christian's life that may not be totally surrendered to Jesus. And therefore, an open door is there for the enemy to just make his entrance, but he can't possess the person. He can only have influence over the person's reaction in that particular area of their lives, right? So there's a difference between possession and demonization. Yeah.
So you say, when you say influence, is that like what, like thoughts? What is that?
You really need to have this session with somebody in that realm, that.
I'm just curious. I'm sorry, I'm just curious,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So, all right, let us look again at the example I gave before. There's an area of brokenness in my life. I'm a Christian, but there's an area of brokenness. And it's a brokenness that I have not surrendered to the Lord Jesus and have not sought help to really and truly get fixed. That place of hurt and brokenness, although I'm under the covenant of Christ, if not healed, then gives an opportunity for the enemy to manipulate how I respond, how I relate, how I act. And the enemy can take charge of that little area of my life, whereas he can't take charge of my soul and my spirit. He might manipulate that area of my life. So Paul says, do not give the devil a foothold. Yeah? Don't give him a foothold. That is the idea. Yeah. So that is why salvation is accompanied by sanctification, where the Christian continues to grow in a way that Jesus takes charge of every facet and every aspect of our lives. We continually surrender ourselves so that the life of Jesus may be experienced in all facets of our lives. That's the idea.
I like that when you said that. So I've had an issue in the past where I've seen that a lot of times pastors or people placed in authority in the church begin to operate not more as Christians, but more as people in authority. And there becomes to be a separation with the Christianity and with the person. So what is it that could lead to some pastors becoming, do you think it's possible for pastors to become desensitized or to become callous? Is that a symptom of burnout? Like, what is it that causes that for pastors?
The pastoral calling is a heavy calling. I want to begin there. because there is so much trust reposed in you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many responsibilities that you shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not careful, by virtue of the responsibilities and the expectations and the dependence that people have on you, you can become so autonomous and authoritarian. You know, it is possible, you know. And that is why, as a united church, we believe in the priesthood of all believers, so that there is accountability, shared accountability. So pastor is accountable to the board of elders and accountable to the congregation, even as the congregation is accountable to pastor. So that way we keep each other grounded in the scriptures and grounded in the calling, you know, and so it is important. So it is possible, I'm sure, and I'm sure that it's possible in any arena of life.
Yeah.
That a person, by virtue of their area of responsibility, by area of the trust that is reposed in them, by virtue of their experience, that they wield a lot of power, because people trust them. People trust them, you know. And the thing about it is that position, power, experience can be so insidious, you know. That's why we need the checks and balances, you know. We need the checks and balances.
So if, and that is, would be like, but outside of the congregation, there's a board. So do most churches have that in place, like a board to check the pastor?
Yeah, well, our United Church, that's how we operate. It's a board, you know, of elders to check not only the pastor, but to ensure the general well-being of the church. You know, and part of the general well-being of the church is to see if your pastor is operating within the ambits of the faith, as outlined in scripture and as outlined in the way we understand and interpret scripture as a church. But we are also answerable to a larger group, which is the synod of our church. So we're responsible locally to our congregations, but the congregation is responsible to the region, and the region is responsible to the synod. So there are elements and structures of accountability. You can't be a one-man band doing your own thing.
Yeah. What do you think can cause, how is it that some pastors seem to get it wrong when it comes to like pastoral counsel and empathy? And so, like, what can cause that? Is it that some pastors are not in the right calling, or they just don't lack the training? Do you believe that like the training of becoming a pastor is important in becoming a pastor? Because, you know, some people feel like they have the Holy Spirit call them to be a pastor, so they don't need to go seminary.
Well, I think it is important by virtue of the fact that we don't know everything. And in order to be better at what it is that you sense God has called you to, it is important that you deepen your capacity through training, right? Now, training takes various forms and modes. Some persons might do it through a seminary. Some persons might do it using information garnered on the internet. It depends on what it is that you believe your calling is and how you ought to be shaped and sharpened. Now, the truth of the matter is that your doctrine is important. And so if the church you're a part of has a particular kind of doctrine must then be outworked. And that is why church systems and structures become important. So your denomination may say, this is who we are, this is how we do what we do, and this is how we interpret the scriptures. So it is important that you're trained in that vein. So it's all dependent on those things.
Well, as I said, I just kind of noticed that. I just realized a lot of people really don't get training though. And I think even Paul, because when Paul after he became a Christian and started to convert, didn't he take 3 years to kind of like get it to be trained or something?
Yeah, he had to understand the faith. And then he went up to Jerusalem, you know, to meet with those who were senior in the faith so that they could explain the way to him and that he could explain to them what he had been doing. And, so there's a kind of accountability that is always important. None of us is too big to learn, and none of us is too knowledgeable that we can't learn from somebody else. And those, and that's what the Christian walk is about. And that is what leadership is about. Leadership is first about followership.
Followership. What that mean? So you have to learn to follow before you lead.
You have to learn to follow even as you lead, because you don't know everything.
I've seen, as I said, from my experience, I just felt like I've seen, and I think it happens when the church is too big. Do you believe with like mega churches? Do you think that, okay, this may be a controversial opinion, because mega churches exist, and I don't want to, because I feel like I see your face. Do you think that a church can become so big that it becomes difficult for the pastor to be able to counsel and help members?
Right. Well, look, the truth of the matter is that mega churches are not new. The first mega church started on the day of Pentecost. Right? Yeah. I mean, Peter preached, and how many people came to the Lord? 3,000 people. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then it grew, to the point where they stopped counting because the numbers were so large. So what do you need in churches that grow? You need persons to assist. I mean, even before you think about the New Testament, think about the mega church that existed in the desert, in the wilderness. And God had to send Jethro to Moses to say, look, you alone can't manage this thing, You need people to help you, right? So the idea, the principle that I'm hitting at is that no matter how large a church is, a minister can't do it by him or herself. You need persons to give assistance and people who are more skilled in different areas to handle different matters so that you, as in the case of the New Testament church, can give yourself to prayer and teaching of the word. And that is your fundamental calling. The idea is that you as a pastor have to appreciate your fundamental calling, even though you may be gifted in many things. What is the core of your calling? And divest yourself of those other things that others can do.
Okay, so knowing your strength and like working within that and making other people fulfill that role. All right, can I ask you a question in terms of how, so I think especially now in today's thing, some people are very sensitive and they don't want to feel, some people you may come with to help them with their issue and they'll be like, oh, I feel like you're judging me. And I think a lot of times, how do you use your judgment to help someone without being judgmental?
Yeah. Boy, you asking me how I do it. I can only share how I do it, right?
Okay.
I think, Stephen, I have been blessed with an awareness of my own weaknesses, my own feelings, my own humanity. And so I appreciate the truth that, look, each of us is a work in progress. And so I try my utmost best to create an environment where people know that, look, this is a space of no judgment, no condemnation here. And I say it. And I've said it to people that, look, there's absolutely nothing on the face of the planet that can surprise me. I have dealt with so many different things. I've seen so many things that nothing really surprises me. And so the human nature is a complex thing. And by virtue of it being so complex, you can't be condemnatory. I think the spirit of Jesus is one that is compassionate. And being compassionate means that you listen and you accompany, you ask the questions, and you prayerfully engage people's story, because each of us has a story and each of us is a story. And that is how I do it. I don't know how others do it, but that is how I do it.
Wow.
Nice. Do you think, can empathy be taught?
It can be. It can be. It can be. It takes practice, but so it can.
Do you think some people are naturally counselors and some can be taught to be counselors?
Yeah, I think there are some people who are naturally empathetic. I believe that by virtue of God's calling on your life, He gifts you in particular ways. And pastors generally, and I'm just generalizing, are people who feel for others because of the shepherding nature of the call. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Are there any like script? Huh?
You can be taught even as God equips you to, engage that kind of calling.
All right. Have you how do you interpret and apply scriptures to address mental health concerns in your congregation?
Scriptures.
Yeah, so like address
Right.
mental health concerns.
Concerns normally. And so I feel like it's a very broad spectrum, so it doesn't just have to be like the intense things. It can be anxiety, it can be depression, it can be panic attacks. I don't know if you've seen stuff like that a lot in your congregation.
Yeah, man. And so for me, Psalm 23 is a beautiful psalm,
Okay.
Yeah, because it speaks of the fact that we have a watchful God,
Yeah.
But even within the context of a watchful God who supplies needs, is the fact that it shows that life is a transitional thing. So look, at one point you're at the still waters and the cool meadows and the lovely lush meadows. But then there's a transition from that to the valley of the shadow of death. You understand? So there's a movement from calm to a place of turmoil. And that is the movement of life. But the thing about it is that even as life changes, one thing remains constant. It's the shepherd. You understand? So I use a text like that. I use another text. Be still and you will know that I am God. Right? So the idea is that, boy, life, by virtue of its constant flux, that challenges my mind and tears at my spirit. What I need to learn to do is find the center of the storm and be still so that I can know that God is God. And the question is, how do I do that? And then the scriptures now show you how you can do that. You read the scriptures, yeah? Psalm 119 verse 1, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It shows me where I'm at. It shows me where I ought to go. So texts like these, I believe, can, and the fact that Psalm 121, for example, it is a psalm of the journey of life and the fact that God watches over your going out and your coming in. So you have the watchfulness of God and the willingness of God to walk with you along this journey of life. In other words, you are not alone. The God who created heaven and earth in the book of Isaiah says, I've carved you on the palm of my hands. Think about that. It's a long time that people need to understand that God has a tattoo with your name and your face on his hands. You understand? So these are some texts that we use to help people to know that they're not alone in this, and the fact that they belong to a community. You understand? And then we help the community to appreciate the need to reach out to each other.
Yeah, I have to say though, like you can have that saying, but there are many times that people can feel absolutely alone in the church. You know what I mean? Or they feel neglected, or, because you have so many. All right, I'm going to give you a story, right? There was a pastor told me this. There was a guy, he didn't go to his church, this is in the States, that was struggling in sin, in moral sin. But he came to the pastor, like penitent and sad. But the pastor was not in his state, because he was very much convicted of the sin he was in, and he couldn't go. The pastor was not there, so he told him to go to his church, his church's pastor, and he did. And he went to the pastor, convicted and cognizant of his sin, and the pastor, in some sense of moral justice, I guess, decided to bring him in front of the congregation with the issue because he's in some form of leadership. And I guess, you know, you can say, okay, that is kind of right. But then you think, is this the way how Jesus does things? If someone is penitent of their sin and your response is to like drag them to the mud and bring them in front of the congregation, that's what the Pharisees did to the woman caught in adultery. You know what I mean? So there are many cases when, and I feel like, I guess some pastors have the best of intentions, but it's still, you know what I mean? It's still.
Yeah. I think we have to be careful not to further destroy and malign somebody who already feels destroyed and maligned. You know what I mean? By virtue of their own actions. You know,
Yeah.
I think we have to pray for wisdom as to how to handle the matters of people's lives. You know, and now I appreciate the fact that there are some things that may impact the church significantly. But is there another way to handle it so that a person is not, you know, further destroyed? We're not here to shoot each other, you know. So is it that we, by virtue of the person's actions as pastor, do I need to then say, all right, by virtue of this, I might need to sit with you and an elder, you know, for us to talk this thing through and pray about it. Things like that don't really get to a church, to my mind, if it is that the person continues to do this thing with an unrepentant spirit. You know, if needs be now, we might need to escalate it. But if a person comes with penitence, with their brokenness, my responsibility is to pour in the oil and the wine by prayer, you know, and support. And then if it is a debilitating sin, you know, these sins, these iniquities that were besetting, you know, then we have to find a way to put systems in place to help that person to put real roads and real guards around their lives, you know, accountability. So I presume each person deals with these things differently. I prefer to deal with them biblically, even as Jesus set the example. Yeah.
And the biblical response is to, and what is the biblical response normally? Is it, you know, you go to that person one way, then you bring a witness, that type of thing?
Yeah, that's normally there. And that is what I was alluding to, you know.
The Matthew 18?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to, you know. So there are steps to this kind of a thing, you know. And these have to do especially with a person who, by virtue of being unrepentant, you know what I mean? So we take the steps, you know, before we...
like sleeping and everything.
Well, yeah, each of the matters is different, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I gotta say though,
A lot of times, a lot of churches use Matthew 18 as an excuse to kind of get rid of someone or remove fellowship from someone who probably desperately needs it. Like it's a way to gleefully wash their hand of that person. You know what I mean? Because normally they'll get in a disagreement and they say, oh, you know, me use the Matthew 18 thing, you know what I mean? So it's just a thing to be like, to just get rid of that person. And I always, it's just interesting because I was reading and listening to a podcast about it, and our pastor said something that was very interesting. He was like, you know, because he says that teaching, because he was like, is that the way how Jesus does things? Because I just can't see Jesus like washing his hand of someone and go on like him not see them and them type of thing. Because even when Judas was about to betray him, Jesus still fed him, still treated him. So, you know, the thing is, a lot of people like they use it as an excuse to wash their hands of the person, but that teaching is only in Matthew. It's only in Matthew. It's not in Mark, Luke, or John. And Matthew was a tax collector. And the saying was, how did Jesus treat tax collectors? He ate dinner with them. You know what I mean? He made disciples of them. So the questioning of that was, is it saying that if you and a person have somehow, you know, you're trying to restore someone and they still won't listen, is it that you send them to hell, you have nothing to do with them, you wash your hands? Or is it that you sit down over a meal and start the relationship all over again.
Yeah. And that is what compassion requires, eh? That's what compassion requires. You know, and I presume that in our fast-paced world, and people just don't have the time, you know, we just do what is quick and easy. You know, we just throw people out on the rubbish heap, you know, make them become refuse. You know, it happens. And we use the scriptures, as you say, to justify why we do what we do. But we need to understand that the gospel really is redemptive. It's restorative. It's not retributive, you know. And so this Christian walk and connecting people with the family and the faith is really a sacrificial call, you know. It's going out, leaving the 99 sheep to find that one. It's a risky thing, you know. It's a risky thing, and it's a laboring thing and a loving thing.
Have you ever had a situation of that where you had to kind of go out of your way to save, you know, to reach out to the 99, like to the...
Yeah, man. Over and over and over again. You know, over and over and over again. You know, yeah. Wow. And I don't say I'm always successful. I can tell you that, but you do what you can, Steve. You do what you can.
Has there ever been a case where you had to kick somebody out of a church?
No, I've never had to do. I've never had that occasion. No, that has never happened.
Have you ever had such a sharp disagreement that you had to like say, "Yo, brother"?
We've had people who have operated in ways that are not in line with how we operate, and we have to remove them from positions for a period in time. And I can only remember one crucial case, and I had to ask the person to, you know, based on what has happened here, and the person agreed. That it's not a good look, you know, it's not good in terms of the way, and the person demitted office. But I was able to work with the person in terms of, you know, restoration and commitment, and place the person somewhere else. Because if that person was placed in the original position, it really would create a problem.
Wait, was he still in the church or he said somewhere else? What do you mean?
In terms of a different area to serve.
Oh, okay. Has there ever been a place where you say, "Yo, this person can't serve in any ministry"?
No, I've never had that. I mean,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to call back to that, but I'm just curious. All right, I'm gonna give you a segment. So I have a segment on the show called like Ask a Therapist, but in this case we call it Ask a Pastor. I get messages from people on my therapy social media site, and they ask me questions and advice. And normally I'll read it for the pastor to give advice. So I'm gonna give you I'm gonna give you two situations, cool? So I'm gonna read the first one to you, and you can tell me what you think this person should do. I am 43 and I am not proud of what I am about to say. Because of needs, I had to do something that I cannot let my sister know. I was working and taking care of my daughter and myself. When the pandemic hit Jamaica, I lost my job. I decided I would leave my daughter with one of my sisters and go to America to see if I could work some money to pay my mortgage. I went to America, but my daughter was not happy living with my sister, and things did not go as planned in America. I was promised a job, but I did not like the type of job, nor the people with whom I was working. My brother-in-law came to America and called me. I visited him and we slept together. It was not planned, but I told him that if I did not pay my mortgage, I would lose my house. I was nearly 4 months in arrears and was scared. My brother-in-law promised that he would assist me. I did not believe him. He assured me that he would, but I had to give him something. Like, okay. I asked him how I could be assured that he would keep his word. He said the only assurance that we need is that we never slip out of my mouth and that we had sex. I told him no one would ever know we had sex that night, and the following day I went to work. He was leaving to Jamaica. So I went to see him and he gave me $300. I had sex with him again, and this time I did everything he asked me to. He promised that he would pay my mortgage. He kept his word. He paid off the arrears. How much was the mortgage? When I realized that it was paid off, I cried because my sister and I would have been close, and I never thought I would go to bed with her husband. Her husband encouraged me to get another job or come home. I asked him how I would manage, and he said he would take care of me until I picked up another job, so I came home. This man and I have a thing going. Nobody knows. He is a manager. He comes to see me during the day while my daughter is at school. He gives me money every month to pay my mortgage and to help with my daughter. My sister asked me how I am managing, and I told her I'm managing well because I have a boyfriend. She does not know that it is her husband. I think she could kill me if she found out. I promised this man that the day I find a man, our affair will come to an end, and he jokingly said he would not because I have tied him to me, but not with food. Right now, I feel like I kept with women. Whenever I go to see my sister, she's always talking wonderful things about her husband. I can say she's keeping the truth because I've experienced these things with him. My brother-in-law doesn't have to worry anything to let him down, but because I will never let him down. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, if I were to read your face, I could know your thoughts. It's an unfortunate situation. And I would ask that sister to really cease and desist, because what she's engaged in is a whole plot and scheme of deception. She is undermining not only the health of her sister's marriage, she is undermining her bonds with her sister.
Yeah.
She has effectively cheapened her own humanity. And what is very striking is that it's something that she keeps up. It is a very terrible thing, because that brother-in-law, he is a master deceiver. And he really has stepped out of the bounds of his covenant. And he is deceiving his wife with her sister, causing turmoil within a family that is yet to be revealed. I would tell that sister to cease and desist, to stop it, to cut it off, to find her way, to make her way. She would not be the first woman to struggle and to fight and claw her way out of debt and need. She would not be the first woman, but to sleep with your sister's husband. No. And her conscience clearly is bothering her, that she hears her sister talk about her husband, but then she would write to you about it. She must listen to her conscience, because it is wrong. It's wrong. I would encourage her to go and find a job and to work hard at making ends meet. No, but she has to cease and desist, to my mind. It's not a good thing. Stephen, I think we all need to appreciate the truth that when there are cracks in our character, these cracks do not get healed when things get tougher. The cracks open up more. And unfortunately, what this sister is doing is creating some significant cracks in her integrity. And trust me, when the waters begin to tumble, the cracks will only get wider. It's just a matter of time to see what else she will do. So I would say to her, please secure your character and your integrity, and that of your sister, and the bonds that you share with your sister. Cease and desist. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, I'm shocked at that brazen. Can I ask you though? All right, and I think I asked it to you prior. I remember it was on the sermon you did, and I asked you, when is it gossip and when is it what is the difference with gossip and seeking counsel? You know what I mean? Like, when is the difference in stuff as that?
As I understand it, gossip is bringing in a third party in a situation who, one, had nothing to do with the situation, and two, cannot assist in solving the issue, right? And I think the second one is important, because whomever you bring in should be able to help you to solve the issue. If they are there just to listen and not help you to solve the issue, then that is essentially gossiping.
So that is what some people call like venting.
Right. Unfortunately. Mark, venting is crucial in terms of ensuring that there is resolution. But venting for venting's sake can be a dangerous thing, especially if you call a person's name and then you call it with such angst that you run the risk of slandering the person. that in and of itself can be very dangerous.
So a friend of mine was saying this, and I don't know. He was saying that therapy is for women, and for men, there should be like performance coaching, but not therapy, because women thrive in giving, venting their feelings and stuff, but men don't thrive in therapy. Do you agree with that?
That's an interesting concept. Well, I can tell you what I tell people who sit with me, whether for premarital counseling, preparation or counseling afterwards. I always say to the female, look, men don't like counseling. I say it up front. And I tell the woman why. Because as men, one, I must go sit down in front of somebody who I don't know and unveil my issues and who I am. Two, me sitting in front of a person to do that means that that person is here to fix me. Three, by virtue of the person here to fix me, it means that the person is better than me. Four, I know that the person is not better than me because that person is a human, just like me, and has problems like me. You see how we men just decode the thing, and by virtue of that, we men don't do counseling. So I tell the woman, men prefer to reason. If a man gets into a reasoning session where he is able to express himself and receive, a kind of response and kind of guidance in a space that is non-threatening, then a man will open up and talk, and you can reason with him and level with him. You know, understand? As a matter of fact, I must share this, Stephen. When I engage in my premarital preparation sessions, which lasts an hour for 6 sessions, most of the men, all of the men, always asking, when is the next one? Because I try to create an environment. We'll just reason, we'll just listen and talk, and it's cool. And let me tell you something else. If a man outside of counseling session says to me, boy, Rev, I want to talk about something, I clear my calendar. Because when a man says he want to talk, it's a serious thing. And I try not to do it at my office because, it's stuffy when you think about it, that boy come say pastor. That in and of itself carries a kind of thing. So we'll just go somewhere and just have a drink and we'll just reason the thing out. I just really believe in reasoning. And that works wonders all the time.
But reasoning and counseling, how big of a difference is that in terms of reasoning?
That's what I'm saying. It's not different, but it's how you label it.
Okay.
But the truth of the matter, Stephen, you have to appreciate the fact too that therapists have a particular approach, right? And many times, and that's the complaint I get, that people seem more bookish than relational. And men prefer a relational approach. Even if you're going to bring in a bookish kind of undertone to it, they prefer if it kind of more relational because it makes more sense to them and it feels less restrictive and less quote-unquote judgmental. But it is important that men do counseling though. I believe in it. I personally, I sit before people to get my own, thing going on. I need to offload and I need to talk with somebody who can help me unpack the issues of my life.
Yeah, I don't believe in that thing about therapies for women because there's so many men killing themselves. You know what I mean? So many successful people still taking their lives. There's a need for it. So I don't know. It's funny. I'm going to talk to him tonight, actually. Cause this American guy, he's like a life coach. But them type of people that just believe, talking about your feelings is weak and stuff. But I kind of want to hear him to expound on it because
I don't believe that.
You see how it is performance coaching, them call it. But you see, they're already putting us men in a box where we are just performers and we're not human beings. And we need to appreciate the fact that we are human beings first. And one aspect of our lives is performance. But the other aspect includes our emotive and includes our spiritual. You understand? And that is where many times we just want men to function. So guess what happens, Stephen? When you put the man in an area of performance and him not able to perform, him feel worse.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know how to handle his emotions because you have locked him in a box of just performance. Some can articulate how him even feel about not being able to perform. And
I think,
limiting.
yeah, I think his argument is that in the world in general, and even amongst women, men are only seen by what they can provide in terms of value. Like that's the argument, you know, that men are only seen as valuable by what they can provide. And a lot of times I can understand that feeling, because there are many periods when you say, boy, I want to make more money, I want to do this, because I feel like, boy, if I'm not able to do this, you know, what value do I have? And it's just sorry, it's just an experience for you, especially when you look at a girl, I see another man come in with a better car than you, and you say, Jano. So you learn when you're young and you say, boy, I need to be financially stable. I need to have my life together before me even date. Because if I don't have my life together, she'll go to her next man. Like, I think a lot of us have this understanding that women wait at the finish line for the winners. That's the kind of talk enough men have. And I feel like it's on that line where he's come to that conclusion.
You know what does, Stephen? That cheapens the human being, and that allows women to be seen. It even dehumanizes women. Because what is the other side? Is it true that women really believe that or operate this way? What type of women are we talking about? You know what I mean? Because if you always have to perform, the truth of the matter is that what happened one day when you can't perform? Your woman going to leave you. It's so cheap your relationship is? It's so cheap that woman is? No, I don't believe that. And then the other thing about it is that even if we're seen as performers and producers and providers, is it that we don't provide emotional stability? Is that not part of the provisional package? Of course it is. And so a healthy man is a healthy one who is mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, and yeah, in terms of his finances, can make his way. But it don't make sense you're lopsided in just providing finances and then the woman is starved of the emotive. It don't make sense. Because trust me, you may give her the world, she'll go find a man who can touch her heart.
I hope that is true. I hope that is very, very much true. You know, because, yeah. But, all right. I think we'll end this recording today. Thank you so much, Pastor Carlyle. You know, I mean, I really appreciate you for taking your time out. You're a very busy person. Took a while to get in touch with you.